This week's road stories are revealing just how much Canada's north is changing. The big melt is opening up a vast new frontier, and it's creating some daunting challenges for Canadians. That's what tonight's stories are all about. As the Arctic ice recedes, resources which were once well beyond our reach are nearly within grasp. Huge oil and gas reserves, minerals of all sorts. How should they be developed? There's another resource in the north, our most precious one, people. They too are being explored. We'll find out what that's all about. But we begin with a question that's being asked on Southampton Island. Will all those mineral resources and the riches they could bring make life better or worse?
I see a landscape that is filled with history, from the rocks that outcrop at the surface, which have a history that goes as far back as hundreds of millions of years. I see a landscape that's just chock full of history and a complicated story to tell.
Geologists Joya Chikungal and Mary Sanborn Berry have spent the summer hammering at and inspecting the terrain of Southampton Island. It's empty, barren land, and no one lives in this part of the island for kilometers. Joya and Mary feel the thrill of putting their own stamp here.
Very few people get the opportunity to come up here and walk on lands that our forefathers walked on, and I find that quite exciting, actually. I feel like I'm on the frontier.
Well, why don't I take some fabrics, and if you want to...
Apart from the joy of working frontier territory, there's another agenda here. Joya and Mary are studying the age of the rock and what kind of minerals it might contain. Although their studies won't reveal for certain what's here, they might suggest what's possibly in the ground. Perhaps enough information that mining companies decide it's worth investing and exploring the area further.
Say mineralogy, calcite.
Federal and territorial governments have funded the entire project. The reality is, if this spade work wasn't done by government, private investors would never take the gamble.
For instance, diamond exploration companies in eastern Nunavut, they're looking for corridors of very ancient rock. Rocks on Southampton have not been dated at all. We don't know if these are the 3-billion-year-old rocks that are prospective for diamonds, or whether these are very young rocks that may have potential for other minerals rather than diamonds.
A team of 28 geologists and students were hired to live in this tent city for the summer. They carved out 15,000 square kilometers of the island, recording every rock formation, fault line, and fold in the land. Southampton was last researched back in 1969. Geologists Bruce Sanford and Bill Haywood spent that summer making detailed notes and maps. Sanford later said he left his heart on Southampton Island. But today, mining companies demand a lot more detail from geological maps. Almost 40 years later, Mary and Joya's group are producing new maps showing the incredible detail of exposed rock and glacial deposits, clues that point to where you might find minerals underneath. Aside from the science of mapping and the study of rocks, there's great expectation about what all this could mean. If there are significant mineral deposits found here, it could mean mining and an economic future for Southampton Island.
Beautiful fabrics, like when we talk about fabrics.
The end of the day, and Mary and Joya lead what they call a geo-wrap meeting.
And the nisosity in these rocks, and we measure that with our compass.
Everyone has been out in the field today and report what they've found.
And so when it's straight like this, it's been shortened like this, and then if it gets folded...
Special attention is paid to any updates suggesting if old rock has been spotted. It's more likely to bear minerals.
Which Southampton Island was likely some part of.
Some of the geologists here, like Joya, are more measured about their expectations and whether rich mineral deposits are guaranteed.
Until we find out the distribution of those ancient rocks and whether or not they exist, it is a little bit of a long shot, but the work hasn't been done since 40 years ago or so. So, either way, there's benefit to both Nunavut and the community of Coral Harbour in that sense.
I like this island because it's calm, lots of hunting grounds. Yeah, I wouldn't really move from here because I like this island. Yeah.
Peter Adams has been working in the camp on night shifts, guarding against polar bears for most of the time, and helping geologists collect their samples. He lives in the larger community of Coral Harbour and is unemployed. The promise of mining jobs and what that could mean for young people like him is not lost on Adams.
Be important, and yeah, it would help out our community, provide some work in mining, yeah.
You've got kids?
I have 2 kids, yes.
And you worry about what they may be doing in the future in terms of what work they could have?
Yeah, I'm sure it would help them out too, doing this kind of mineral works, yeah, mining jobs. Yeah. Would provide some in town, help out the town, yeah.
The story of Peter Adams is a sad but common one in most of Nunavut. Finding good and steady work is tough going for young people living in the region. Unemployment in northern communities is chronic.
Minister.
Pat Netzer represents the town of Coral Harbour, the largest community on Southampton Island. In his view, the need for work here is desperate, and a mining industry could only help his people. Some people worry about mining companies, or any big company comes in, that it creates more problems than there's a benefit for. How are you going to ensure that doesn't happen?
Like what kind of problem? What kind of more problems? The question is, what more problems are you talking about?
You got them already.
It's here. So obviously mining is not an issue.
It's the benefits that you're looking at solely
Yes,
on that.
the benefits. We're grown up now and we can look after our own resources.
The debate seems almost cliche, but it's a reality, and a difficult one for people living in Canada's north. Will mining and development just mean more social problems for the Arctic? And what impact will it have on the beauty of the land? That said, there's an interesting irony in that Nestor is also Nunavut's environment minister. Now, you're the environment minister as well as the member who's associated with this riding. Mm-hmm. Is there not a bit of an irony in that fact?
Well, we have a stringent management on, we make sure that the environment's protected. And they go through a screening process. There's the possibility of a mining camp. So, we're involved to make sure that the environment's protected and we're comfortable with it.
Sheila Watt-Cloutier is an activist and nominee for this year's Nobel Peace Prize. She counsels caution. Although she doesn't begrudge anyone the need for work, she believes the younger generation has other strengths more worthy of developing.
But it's so unfortunate that as a result of what has happened to us historically in terms of how we just haven't been able to quite make it, that we now have to be choosing these kinds of quick fixes and be so anxious for those kinds of jobs without really stepping back and looking at the larger picture of where we want to go as an Inuit society. And to tap into some of the remarkable talents and gifts that our young people here have that are promoting our culture, our performers, our cultural performers.
It's been a long day in the field for Mary and Joya. The camp helicopter arrives to pick them up, and they'll be heading back for a hot meal with the rest of the crew. It's satisfying work, but always weighing on them in the field is what becomes of their work and the expectations for mineral development.
We're always trying to think of how can we bring economic development to the communities out of which we are working, and how to get people excited, mainly because that is something that is so important in the in making Nunavut Nunavut.
More and more we're starting to hear that Inuit becoming diabetic.
Climate change, changing diet. How could they be connected? A huge health survey in Nunavut may hold the answer.